Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Automox's For Fixed Sake series, where we have different topics every month to be a source of education for those in the IT and security industry. And you can see more in the activity section below. This month, we're going to talk about automation, which is more important than ever with the current economic crisis that we're facing and in a post-COVID world. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to meet our subject matter experts. We're going to navigate through that hop-in console so you know where to go and how to use it. Then we're going to go and have a robust panel discussion. And be sure to listen closely to find out which breakout session best suits your needs. Once that panel concludes, we're going to break out and you're going to have an opportunity to win a $50 gift card by submitting your favorite automation tool in the chat. And now let's meet our panel. So I'm Jason Kikta. I'll start with myself. I'm your host today, and I'm also the CISO of Automox. I am relatively new to the company, just having started about a month and a half ago now, and coming off of 20 years in the Marine Corps and spending the last 7 of 9 years at U.S. Cyber Command, running the counter APT and counter ransomware missions there. And I also do adjunct teaching down at Johns Hopkins CISO in Washington, D.C. It's my pleasure to introduce both Joe and Marina. Joe, can you tell us a little bit about yourself today?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Joe Reinemann. I'm an automation specialist at Trade.io. But in a past life, I was an IT admin working day to day with the processes that now I look to help people automate.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe. Marina, how about you introduce yourself as well, please?
All right. Well, nice to meet everyone. I'm Marina. I am a security engineer at Automox. I report to Jason. He's my head boss. Previously, I did threat research at a security vendor, and I also was a threat analyst, so looking at a lot of malware and analyzing the threat landscape. So happy to be here.
Thanks, Marina. All right, before we dive in, just a few housekeeping items that I want to address. So let's go over just a few quick tips so you can maximize your viewing experience. So first off, number one right there on the slide, that's your main stage tab. You are here. This is where you are right now, okay? Below the player screen, make sure you check out those relative resources. Over there, point number two, that's Q&A. Those will be moderated and remain hidden. We try our best to respond if we can, and we'll get an answer to you via email or the Automox community if we don't get one during the session. And you can find the link to the community below or in the chat. Number three is the polls, or are the polls. Please submit your answer once it pops up. We love to get feedback from the polls, and it helps drive the discussion. Number four, the chat. All right, this is an open forum to engage with others. Again, we'll do our very best to respond, but you know, it's also an opportunity for the audience to interact with one another. And then number five, that's your sessions control. So that's where you get to pick which session best resonates with what you want to learn more about later on. And they are under the schedule and reception tab. Please submit your chances because you have a chance to win exclusive giveaways. All right, now we're going to talk about the impacts of this economic downturn that we're all worried about, that we've been watching. We're headed into tough economic times. Each day brings more news of downturn. There's rampant inflation. Interest rates are going through the roof. It's just been up and up and up since the spring, and doesn't really show any signs of stopping if you listen to the Fed and what they've been saying. Companies are losing resources, and it's a mixture of some are trying to ensure that they have enough capital to weather the storm. Others are already feeling the effects. And so that's causing additional stress on the system. Job stability, it can be shaky at best. There's a lot of movement in the market right now. I was looking at a chart the other day that a friend sent to me in a private group, and November has been peak layoffs for the month of 2022 in the tech sector. They've just been going really, really upwards. So that's impacting job stability all around. And then the political climate globally, especially with the war in Ukraine, is driving additional uncertainty. So all of that is especially tough for IT departments and sysadmins. They have to continue to fix those IT issues and keep users productive, but you have to do that with fewer people. And there's been layoffs to prepare for recession. The tools are not getting any more any easier to use. They're complicated, or you have less of them because you can't afford the additional services. There's more projects on your plate than ever before. And frankly, bad actors are not slowing down. There's just too many threats in the world today. And that trend does not show any sign of reversing. And frankly, with harder economic times, that's going to increase motivations for cybercrime, especially. So there is one workaround solution that makes a ton of sense when it comes to saving IT teams money and time, and that's automation. 76% of IT executives report automation and AI have maximized the efficiency of their security staff. 53% state that less than half of their business processes are automated. And even threat actors have automated. Many elements of the kill chain, for example, have been automated to allow actors to move at greater speed. What used to be a lot of bespoke custom work of getting that, intermediate architecture built up, the computers and systems outside your network to do command and control, or to stage data that they've stolen from your network, that used to all be done by hand. And today, most of it is automated, and it can, be spun up almost on a per victim basis, and it gets that much harder to detect and respond to. So now we're going to go into our panel discussion, and what I'd like for for both of you to share with us is, do you have specific examples of where and how automation has helped you in your organization, such as using existing tools, APIs, and other scripting tools? What kind of types of automation do you see as the biggest time and resource saving? Whether it be for onboarding, software deployment, patching, so on. And then what do you think is causing people to put automation on hold? And then how do they get around that? So we'll start where has automation helped out your organization, and how has it done so? And Joe, we'll go ahead and start with you as our guest.
Yeah, absolutely. So automation, right? It can help everywhere. In my previous roles specifically, we've used automation to automate mundane tasks like data transfers from one application to another application. A big thing, though, that we really doubled down on and we saw huge results from, both in time saving, security, and employee satisfaction, is the onboarding and offboarding process, or just general employee lifecycle automation.
Yeah, and I can add on to that as well. So as a security engineer, there's a lot of we have to install security software, right? And one of the easiest things to do is to automate that. So make sure that all of our endpoints are compliant. They have all the necessary security software. When I was customer facing, I had some customers that, like, their one job was to install AV to every single laptop manually. And I was like, why don't you automate that? They're like, oh, well, I mean, it's not too bad. It's like 5-10 minutes per laptop. I'm like, how many laptops? Like, I have 450, 500. So it definitely saves a lot of time, and also make sure that, like, you don't forget, like, you don't miss a single laptop, to ensure compliance, and obviously to make sure you have eyes and ears everywhere. I personally am the IR lead at Automox. So I also use automation to pull specific artifacts, grab specific logs. There's a lot of different directories and types of files that need to be parsed, and it's kind of painful to go to every single folder, grab each of them individually, right? So in the event of any alerts or incidents, I have a script that will pull all the relevant logs, and that way I have them all in one succinct zip file, and I'll be able to look through and see, like, if there's anything interesting, because in those instances, time is of the essence. So definitely automate wherever possible, especially the painful, tedious stuff.
Oh, exactly. And your mention of manually installing antivirus on every single endpoint resonated with me because I remember when I started in this field over 20 years ago. We'll call it 20 years, make me feel a little bit young, but so much work had to be done by hand and required, touch labor on individual systems. And I think as a community, we've gotten better in IT and in security with being able to remotely do things. So not have to go around to each system physically, but there is still far too much, hands-on keyboard, touch labor. Especially when you consider the entire point of computers is to automate and do things that are tedious for humans to do. So, focusing on automation just absolutely makes sense, especially for areas where, you don't require a lot of human decision making, right? Where it's a very straightforward sort of flow chart of activity that needs to be done, and simple, non-complex decisions to be made. That's where the sort of the sweet spot for automation. So, Marina, what types of automation do you think has specifically? Do you think has the biggest time and resource saving? Is it onboard? Is it software deployment, patching? What have you seen?
Honestly, all of the above, right? Like the example I mentioned with deploying AV software to each machine, like having the software automatically installed when a new hire gets their laptop definitely saves a lot of time. Even offboarding, right? Just to make sure that those laptops are secured and deprovisioning accounts and such. No, insider threats or fears of DLP after an employee is terminated. I think for me, since being in the IR world, having the ability to grab all the necessary information within seconds is super helpful, because essentially if I went and sat and go, okay, I need this folder, I'm going to grab this, I'm going to send it to myself, I'm going to open it and individually look for these specific items that I know would be interesting, and repeat, rinse and repeat, do that 10 times, right? And for like each machine, versus if I had one script that here's every single type of log I'm looking for, parse them out, right? Pull these specific fields, tell me their output. So within, 5-10 seconds, I can see, okay, these are more interesting details. These are innocuous that I need to drill in further. Saves me hours of time. So anything that helps with giving you that eagle eye of what's happening in the environment, that saves me a lot of time as like a threat analyst, just giving me all the relevant information within 5 to 10 seconds. So I'd say, yeah, all of the above, right? Because right now, since a lot of companies are experiencing layoffs, you have to do a lot more with less. Anything that frees up my time to do my job more effectively, definitely advocating for.
Excellent, thank you. And Joe, how about you? What are the types of automation that have been the biggest bang for the proverbial buck?
Yeah, I got to agree with Marina on that. It's everything. I'm a huge proponent of automate everything that you can to save yourselves time and make things more efficient. But I think, to determine what it is that's going to hold the biggest value, it requires a little bit of looking inward to your team and your organization to see, where are we as an organization? What are our biggest challenges and where are we spending our time? For example, if you're in a huge growth period, it might make most sense to jump into an onboarding and offboarding automation and get that locked down and have that process be automated. For example, I was at an organization in the past where we onboarded about 300 employees in a 2-month time span. So for us then, onboarding and offboarding would have been the bread and butter that saves us the most time and holds the most value to our team.
Absolutely. And I think that one resonates with me as a CISO as well, because not just the onboarding, but the account lockdown, right? What good does it do to determine that, a bad actor is masquerading as an employee, or to detect an insider threat if you're not able to, rapidly lock down that account's ability to access, key resources within the company. That's, if you don't have that sort of automated response piece figured out, then you're just never going to be nimble enough to stop an actor mid intrusion. You're going to spend a lot of time doing cleanup though. Joe, what do you think is causing people to put automation on hold? What are those holdups? What's slowing them down, and how can they get around it? Is it that they don't understand it, or they don't trust it, or they're having trouble making use cases? What are those obstacles that you think that they're dealing with?
Yeah, you said two things there that I see time and time again working with leaders in IT and security. I think one of the biggest things is it's just hesitancy in a skill gap way to get into the tools or get into automating things. And I think one of the biggest things you can do to combat that is to just dive in head first and start chunking it up and learning the different fundamentals that are going to make you a very strong automator. Starting with something like learning the fundamentals of APIs, how they work, what they do, and how they're going to work in your automations. And then from there, go into learning Java or Python or a specific tool set, and then learning, JSON and just piece that all together. And you can do this all while still holding an impact in your automation. You can use tools like Zapier to learn the API fundamentals and still be automating while you're doing that. So I think it's a lot of people just are hesitant and don't realize how applicable their current skill sets are.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, I think some of it is fear. Like what if you did automation and it like broke things, and there maybe like they had a catastrophe from a previous task that they automated. Some are just more comfortable having like a human set of eyes look through it, and it's more in their eyes, it's more foolproof if a human did it. So I think it's also, again, it's not great economic times right now. We've laid off, like everyone in the industry has seen the effects of that from, your Googles, Facebooks, etc. But just resource constraints. Sometimes like the team after layoffs, they're kind of fighting fires and they're very trying to keep the lights on. They might not have time to set aside or to advocate for, hey, I want to automate these things when they have 5 fires to put out that day. So setting having the short-term versus long-term goals, like advocating to leadership, hey, I need cycles. I know you want me to put out these 5 fires. I will do that, but I need cycles to automate this, to have cost savings for our team, to better allocate our resources in the long term. So just getting that use case in front of leadership as well.
You mentioned the concern that automating might break things. Have you found strategies, either of you, on how to best test automation? Do you start small and move big? Do you run it for a certain subset of users? Run it in a different environment if you have it? What are the sort of the best practices around testing and building those initially? Joe, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of when you're looking to implement something new, starting at the drawing board, right? Really defining that process that you're looking to automate. If you're just jumping into automating it, you don't have a really thorough understanding of how things work, and if it's not how you want it to work today, how you want it to work in the future. Once you have that very solidified and very laid out, I think it's good to go into just iterating and testing, whether that's a subset of users or iterating in a completely segregated test environment until you've got it down to a point where you're comfortable with it and you're comfortable with it that it won't fail on you and it won't go awry.
Yeah, and don't directly test in prod as your first use case, or else that will traumatize everyone, right? So I'm definitely an advocate for first test on yourselves, right? Your teammates, definitely the first guinea pigs. Flesh out any of the bugs, anything that went wrong, correct, test again. When you feel comfortable within your team, maybe ask for, depending on what you're automating, like who does it impact, ask for 1 or 2 people representative from those stakeholders if they'd willing to be a guinea pig, knowing that they might have issues. So that way you don't, wipe out the entire department. From there, right, keep iterating until you feel comfortable. If there is like a dev environment, a staging environment, something that's not prod, test in that. But definitely have like a good soak period. Try to test for different scenarios for how you could break it. Maybe have a bug bash if it's super complicated, just to really iron out all the kinks before presenting it to the broader environment.
I think my perception as well has been that automation has, kind of been stigmatized with a lot of other and grouped in with other technologies that haven't delivered on their promises, right? And we've seen that a lot with ML and AI, where people say, oh, machine learning is going to take, it's going to solve all of these problems. AI is going to solve these problems. And a lot of those are pie in the sky and probably unfair for what the state of the art is and the state of the possible is for those technologies. But I'm curious, trying not to sneeze. Ooh. My apologies, everyone. So I'm curious, do you think that, that there's a stigma around automation that it's getting from other technologies, or do you think that it's more that people have had a bad experience in the past with something that just, that is not representative of the state of the art today? Marina, over to you.
I think it's probably just bad experiences previously. So let's just say you did have automation to deprovision accounts, and for some reason deprovision the wrong account, right? Just like the fear of it going wrong versus having like a person methodically, manually going through it to make sure it's error proof. But I think like logically though, like humans are also prone to errors, right? Like with automation isn't shouldn't have that bad rep. I also think there might just be like, I think from my perspective, if there is resistance to it, I'd be happy to like run through what the script actually does and show them like, hey, these are the inputs. This is what it's doing, right? And this is the end result, just to explain to them, like, it's not this black box. You click something and then something magically happens. Like I explained, depending on a technical or non-technical audience, like how the actual automation works and how logically it will arrive at the desired end result. But I think it's just, yeah, like those that aren't familiar, it might be more of a black box to them, so they're more wary and have some distrust of it.
No, that makes perfect sense. Joe, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with Marina. I think it does fall into a lot of that black box segment where people don't really understand how it's being accomplished, and I think a lot of it does fall into also that overselling of the dream from automation companies and historically machine learning and all of those other things. And it does kind of get that stigma from there where people, if you don't really have the thorough understanding of how it's being accomplished today and how the modern technology works, it's very easy to kind of lump it into that black box and be like, I'm not really sure if this is actually going to work the way it's being told it's going to work.
Yeah. And that makes sense to me. And I think that resonates with someone like me who's been around a while longer, in that a lot of the early automation you saw, there were a lot of hacks in it, right? We didn't have the robustness of API availability and the mature APIs that modern software and tool stacks have. That just, it wasn't as much of a thing. And so, some of it was literally, there were some automations, 10, 15 years ago that literally tried to, fake a keyboard and mouse to move things around on the screen and keep track of where windows actually were on a screen, sometimes while a user was using the system. And it was just, very, very painful to use that and was prone to breaking. So that makes perfect sense to me. So, Marina, or sorry, I think we did Marina. Joe, what's your favorite automation that you've used in the past, and why is that particular one your personal favorite?
Yeah, my absolute favorite is something we run internally at Trey. It's access request automation, and the way we have it set up is actually super cool and super hands off for our IT team, and really increases the employee experience here. So what it does is you put a slash request into Slack. It opens a modal. You put in what software you need access to. That's going to go ahead and automatically check an Airtable that we have. It's going to have that Airtable contains every employee type, what softwares they should automatically have access to, what are common and what is approved automatically. If it falls in that, it's going to automatically provision that for you, log a ticket in Jira for our team for auditing purposes, and everything's all set. If it needs hands-on from our team, it's out of the ordinary. So typically when I need a piece of software requested, I just go into Slack and I request it, and automatically it's provisioned for me.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that one. How about you, Marina? What's your favorite?
Yeah, so same vein, I guess we all just live out of Slack, right? So we created an IR workflow. So we have an IR Slack bot. We also use slash commands, spins up a channel, spins up a Zoom, and you're able to directly input all like notes, tasks, action items into just from Seamless from Slack, and then it will take the totality of all the different types of so there's obviously like different fields and different slash commands. It'll take the totality of that and it will automatically put it into a post-mortem and an instant response report. So I like to write, but after any type of like alert, you're kind of just drained, right? You just like don't want to have to like go through and do all that, but it'll create the report and it'll auto input all of those fields and the entire timeline of all the notes that we have. So all I have to do is just edit, proofread, and then we're good to go. So I love that because previously I would just be sitting there like writing reports and postmortems manually. But this just, again, you do it once and you might have to correct for like grammar and spelling type of thing. But otherwise, it's a very seamless workflow.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I really like that one. Mine, this one's a little grim, but my personal is our Grim Reaper bot that deals with employee offboarding. But I love the thoroughness of it, of just going in and suspending access and setting the right messages in different places to let people know that someone's been deactivated, and then finally finishing up with the MDM lockout. The from a security perspective, the thoroughness of it is just a lot of fun to watch, even if the occasion is sometimes sad itself. So I think just to wrap up on this slide here, I think from Automox's perspective, there's 6 critical automations that we think that every IT team should prioritize to streamline operations and overcome those challenges. And those challenges include lack of visibility across systems, environments, and tools, difficulty meeting SLAs and expectations for perfect reliability and performance, increasing the alarm noise, and I would say even alarm visibility and data volumes, and then rising MTTR and support costs, and supporting the rapid shift from working in an office to work from home, and then overcoming challenges stemming from distributed IT items, including governance and process issues. So, all right, we are ready to just about ready to move over to our breakout sessions.